courage to be real, where real stories break the silence.
Children often don't have the language to explain trauma, right? So instead of words, yeah, and Jason, you've seen this a lot in your clients. What do they do? What do children typically do instead of using words? That say, I'm being abused at home, or somebody's hurting me, or bullied, or whatever. They don't know these words.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, we can all talk about that. We can, in talking about tattoos, for instance, like I had a therapist one time. He called me out immediately. He says, all your tattoos, it's because you weren't allowed to express your emotions growing up, was it? Yep, nailed it. I think a lot of people can probably relate to that. When it comes to kids not being able to express their emotions or talk about the things that they're going through at home, they're going to lash out. I mean, they're going to be those kids who either excessively withdraw into themselves, or they become, they become the bullies. They lash out because they're looking for some form of attention, and it comes in those forms of bullying, or it's going to come at, like, I even developed a tic the 3rd or 4th grade. And I remember it was the most awkward thing growing up, because the teacher came over to me and was like trying to calm me down, because my parents had talked to her and said, hey, Jason's doing this weird thing with his shoulders. Just like, I was constantly like going like this, and I don't know why, but it's something I picked up. And she comes over to me and she starts rubbing my shoulders and trying to calm me down. I was like, this isn't helping. But again, we don't have the language for it. We don't know how to talk about that stuff when we're that young.
I think if more, and this is something that we in CAMCAM do, is we work with these care providers and these professionals, especially professionals that work, or children-centric professionals, I should say, children-focused. And something in your case where you develop this tic and somehow your body becomes a little bit spastic, and or your muscles are tense, and it's going to come out in a lot of different ways. A quiet kid suddenly becomes a class clown. Somebody who's typically loud and obnoxious, all of a sudden they're withdrawn and hiding in the corner. Red eyes, puffiness, lack of sleep, all of a sudden lack of hygiene. I mean, there's so many things. And we try to work with these professionals, saying that if you notice any change, and it maybe isn't the change or the characteristic that you're expecting, but if you notice any change, it's worth exploring. And sometimes it's just a matter of, hey, Jimmy, can you stay after class for a second? I want to talk to you about an assignment that I think you did really well in. Don't scare the child. And don't, this is something we also tell them. If you're going to call a child to class and say, can you stay after? What do the other kids go? Ooh, Johnny's in trouble.
Yeah.
So if you say, Johnny, I want to talk to you about, something that we did a couple of weeks ago. I think you did really fantastic, but can you stay after class? We'll let everyone go, blah, blah. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, Johnny's pretty smart. Or, oh man, I didn't know Johnny was that smart. But it doesn't matter. It's something positive. Now, when the teacher is talking to Johnny, or it's a more of a quiet situation, then we ask the tough questions, and we do it without touching the child, which is probably a little bit a little bit off of what you were expecting. Why is the teacher touching my shoulders, and what are the other students thinking? But yeah, we tell them, or we work with them to, let's just have a conversation with Johnny. Is everything okay at home? Do you like going home? And if you ask if everything's okay at home, yeah, everything's fine. Do you like going home? What do you do when you're at home? Do you play video games? Do you have a brother? Do you have a sister? And a lot of teachers already know their older sibling. So, hey, Johnny, I remember Brian, your older brother. Do you guys hang out together? No, he doesn't have time for me. Really? Why not? And then when you get to the root of the bottom of the situation, sometimes, the older brother's thumping Johnny around a little bit, and or something's going on even worse in the family. Mom and dad are maybe lashing out. So it's taking children who don't have the language and don't have the ability to really explain themselves, and watching them. Of course, teachers are great, right? Caretakers are fantastic, because they see these children, 270 days a year. I might be exaggerating depending on where you're at, but they see them almost every day for most of the year. They're going to notice little changes of behavior that maybe the other students don't even pay attention to.
Absolutely. And you had mentioned something, you had said about the class clown, because I remember you saying that something. You used anger to lash out, and You like to make jokes about things. Yeah, so those are definitely some really good things for the caretakers, for the teachers, for the authority figures to look out for. And then, like you said, Drew, too, asking the right questions.
Mhm.
Sometimes it just takes spending a few extra minutes to show this kid, this individual, this little child that, hey, it's okay. This moment, this space is going to be safe, and we're just
Mhm.
talking. It's like, because their guard is already going to be up, I'm sure. Like,
Oh, yeah.
how can I trust anybody if I'm having major trust issues at home?
You're absolutely right. And a lot of times, even in my case, these children are so afraid. What do they say? It's the evil you know versus the evil you don't. These children
Exactly.
will literally protect their abuser, similar
Yeah,
to a Stockholm syndrome. So
exactly.
if
That's what
you
I was
ask the
going to
wrong
say. Mhm.
questions, right, if the teacher asks the wrong questions, they're going to push that child even closer to their abuser because they're going to find that safety, or they're in the child's mind or in my mind, I'm going to please the abuser. Right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna run home and this happened and that happened and my teacher's horrible and blah blah blah. And I didn't say anything. And these children have the same withdrawal, if you will, but the protection factor comes in there, which is really
Mhm.
horrible. Except if you can get them, you spend enough time with the child and you know the child's characteristics and they've changed, whether it's suddenly and or sporadically over the year, but there's no marked improvement in that changing, then there's something going on, right? 99.9% of the time. I'm not going to say always, it could be there's a sick relative and that's something going on. But little Johnny's going to say, yeah, grandma's been in the hospital. I'm afraid I'm not going to see her anymore. Or last time I saw her, she looked really horrible. Okay, this is something explanatory that we can then talk to. And maybe this is a good chance to, and I'm not going to say what the teacher should or shouldn't do at this point, but this is a good chance to kick it down a notch and know that there's not any kind of abusive trauma going on, or at least not assume that there's any abusive trauma going on, right? That's pretty telltale. Grandma's sick, or we just lost our dog. I grew up with this dog and I'm really, really sad and I can't get over it. Okay, these are things that we can explain. But if they hem and haw, if they try to protect, if they withdraw when you're asking questions, like me, I was a class clown for a reason. I
Mhm.
wanted to attract so much attention to myself that people pushed me away. And you know what? It worked. So not always is a class clown a clown because they want the attention. A class clown might be, like I was, so obnoxious that I won't get any attention. So that was
Okay.
my psychology back in the day. Worked.
And the result that you ended up getting after you got kicked out of your mom sent you away to live with your grandparents.
Yeah.
That was your best case scenario, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's when everything changed for the better. I really, I really respect, I really love my grandfather. What a good guy. And even though they didn't really know what was going on in my life, they were there for me.
Mhm.
So that's something I'll never forget. But, and let's pause on that for a second, because we did talk about, and I'm going to keep saying little Johnny, and I'm sorry if anyone's watching this and your name is John, I apologize. John Smith, it's just an easy name to say, but little Johnny is being abused at home, right? Let's just say his parents, one of his parents or both of them, are abusing him. Okay. Maybe there's alcohol involved. We don't know. And you said sometimes they're taken out of the home or put into foster care. Being pulled out of the home can be very scary. You don't know. Well, they say the grass is always greener on the other side until you hop over the fence and step in crap. As a child, they're scared. Now, I had my grandparents, and I was actually sent off to my grandparents, and that was my foster care, if you will. It was what I needed. It was a safe place. But sometimes letting the state intervene is safety. If it's a bad abusive situation or it's escalating, put them, get them out of the home, or have somebody intervene, or have a relative come in and take over. And that's where the caretaker or the teacher or the health professional, I should say, comes in and says, what, little Johnny, this is not a good situation. Now, obviously, you're not going to have that discussion with Johnny. You're going to have that discussion with social services or local authorities. And even if you go to We in CamCam on the website, we say all over the website, we are not a replacement for contacting the proper authorities, which is very important. And acting as soon as possible is even more important. There are some we're even pulling some more information on how many deaths result from abuse. And that's
Sure.
a staggering number as well.
I was just looking up, Drew. I mean, just looking up, I think last year, the numbers aren't official yet, but 720,000 people committed suicide last year alone. And how many of that, yes, had this forced trauma in their life, or even if it wasn't forced. I mean, you and I both know we get to that point in our life where it's like calling it quits is going to be the best option.
Right.
But it's
The
only
easiest.
because we did not have the tools, the resources to understand what's going on internally. And it all started way back when we were young. And so why for everybody who's listening right now, the courage to be real. I mean, that is what this is all about. First of all, nobody ever told us when we were little that we have to hold all this in. Like we made that up, and we had no other option. So it's like there's compassion there for the fact that we did that, but at the same time, it's like we need to teach these kids now, hey, it's okay, you can be brave. But then at the same time, the caregivers who are here helping, supporting, looking after these younger individuals, they also need to have the courage to be real, to be able to back up what they're saying. It's like we cannot ask these kids to trust you if you're not going to be there to be strong when it really matters. And
exactly.
I want to just back up just a little bit on something that you had said too, when like asking the right questions for these kids. It reminded me of an NLP specialist, a neuro-linguistic programming specialist, who had talked about how do you really influence someone. And I was able to take this and apply it into the coaching that I do. And maybe some of the people listening can apply this when they're really trying to connect with these kids. But I think there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 different stages you go through, but you first control your own state. That's the number one. You control yourself, you regulate yourself. So you're in this situation, you're talking to a young kid, or even if it's not a young kid, you're just helping somebody, you're trying to hold space for them. You control your own state. And then you get rapport, and then you use your language, which is an important part of asking the right kind of questions. And then you'll be able to manage their state where they'll be safe, they'll feel safe enough to trust you. And then you jump into their process of like what exactly is going on. That's where you really jump in and you try to understand exactly what they're going through. And then you create a link to their values. And by establishing all of those things, you create enough of a safe space for this individual to trust you. But then as a caregiver, we need to be able to back that up. We need to be able to really provide the support. Sometimes it's like you're saying, sometimes it's not just about creating the safe space. We need to take the action that is really going to help these individuals get permanent safety in their life.
And that's, that's important in any stage, really. Even as an adult, and I'm in my 50s, working with Jason for this past year, I had to face my childhood again. I wish I met Jason 20, 30, 40 years ago, let's be honest. And, who knows how my life would have changed. Now, I'm happy with what I have. I have a loving wife. I have a great little son that we adopted. I have 2 older kids. I have lots of friends. I have a decent career. There's a lot of things that happened in spite of the situation that I went through. And I think that that's just, based on character. Some people, and again, we will talk about suicide a little bit deeper in the next upcoming episodes. Jason even said with over 700,000, that's one every 40 seconds, by the way. And those are those that succeed. So if you really want to throw some number, how many millions attempt, or how many millions cry out for help? So the number is absolutely staggering. That's over 720,000 successful, and I hate to use the word successful when you're talking about suicide, but those that actually went through and accomplished what they set out to do, which is horrible. Some of us have been there, myself included. If the caretaker, if the individual has the right questions, if the individual doesn't give up. And thank you for watching us, by the way. This is The Courage to Be Real. This is Jason Plevell, I'm Drew Forman. Today, we're just talking about some of the things that need to be in place to keep children safe, and or if you experience trauma, what you can do to change that and change your behavior and get the help that you need. Awesome coach like Jason. But the caretakers, and if you are a teacher, if you are children focused or child focused caretaker, don't give up. All right. You hold little Johnny after class, you have a discussion, something's going on, but you can't put your finger on it. Johnny's not giving you the right answers. Have another discussion with Johnny. Right? Keep monitoring Johnny. If things are getting worse, I think it's mandated. It should be mandated, but I think it's mandated that you do call the proper authorities, or at least get top tier in the school and get them involved, right? A dean, a principal, the nurse, healthcare provider, sometimes taking the child to the nurse and having the nurse talk to them, maybe even looking at the arms, knees, legs, their back. They might see some telltale signs. It's horrible, but it does happen. Don't give up. Reach out to Jason or myself. We will give you free downloads and other information. Go to weandcamcam.com. That's WEANDKAMKAM.com. Our little boy that we adopted is Camille. Or Jason, Emotionally Jacked. If you reach out to either one of us, we'll get you in touch with that community, which is absolutely fantastic, by the way.
I just want to piggyback on all that too, Drew. I mean, because we're talking a lot about the kids. The kids who are being directly affected by that. But if you're on the other end of it and you are the causer, not the causee, it's like, stop. Right? I mean, you've got to understand, like, if you've made it this far and you understand that, okay, there's something going on in me, and I know that maybe I'm not forcibly putting my child through trauma, but I can understand that how my reactions, how I'm showing up as a father or a mother, as a caregiver, is negatively impacting my child's life. They are scared of me. They're sad all the time. I can notice them withdrawing. It's like, we're not giving up on you either. It's like, this is what the Courage to Be Real is all about. It's like, you got to acknowledge there's something in me that needs to change.
Yep.
And so again, like what Drew is saying, let's get the kids safe. Let's get kids help, the help that they need, the support that they need. Go to weandcamcam.com for all the support and the tools and the resources if you're a caregiver in that position. And I want to speak just to the parents right now. Like, if you are somebody who is emotionally reactive and you know that something needs to change, yes, reach out for help wherever it may be.
Courage to Be Real, where real stories break the silence.